Okay, so here we go. For the last presentation of this morning, but one more left after lunch, and here is Carola.
Hiya.
Hi, Carola. So lovely to see you.
You can see me, you can hear me, all right? Good.
I can see you, we can see you, and we can hear you. Everything is working fine. Yeah, absolutely great. Thank you very much. And here are your slides. It's,
Lovely. Can you take it off for a moment?
Sure. Yeah, it's been... it's so great to have you on this Congress. We have known each other for a long time now.
Yep, coming up for 40 years.
Oh my goodness.
Beginning Shiatsu together, yeah.
We've had a lot of fun over those years though.
We did, some memories there. So anyway, I have been known to get a bit rushed towards the end of my presentation, so I want to say it now, because the next one on is you, and you're not going to be able to thank yourself. So I wanted to really thank you on behalf of everybody, all the presenters and all the attendees, because you've done something amazing here. You really have. I've been tuning in through this Congress, and so many interesting people. And it's been really inspiring to see that we're all on the same page, that the themes are constant. They keep coming up and the same themes. And it's just incredible to have that sense of togetherness. And you've done a wonderful thing. Your team is amazing. Dinah, Basti, Shakura, Kat, you've been so helpful, so efficient, so supportive. And it's Cliff, your energy has made it all possible. So thank you.
Oh,
thank you very much.
It's been a great pleasure. I was just thinking actually during the break, I was thinking, wow, we've created a massive toolkit to survive the 21st century. I mean, everything, like you say, has come together so well, so many different directions, forming this amazing energy field that's all pulling in the same direction.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well, needed somebody to do the digital and to make the contact, and you did it so great.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I've actually enjoyed it. I've had a really easy ride because when all the rest of the team have been working away behind, making sure everything worked, I've just been sitting here enjoying it just like you have. I've had a great weekend.
It has been good. It really has been great. Okay, so I'll start now.
Okay, so your slides, here we go.
Yeah, I don't want that slide yet.
Okay.
Can I just...
That's the first one.
Can I just click, can you send it away? And then I'll click on it.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, all right, start it. It's fine.
That was the first slide, that one.
That was the first slide. So these are my slides, are they?
The first one.
Yeah, great.
That's
all right.
one, yeah.
There we go. So I'm all right with my slides now. Okay, so welcome everybody. I actually can't see the chat from here, but I'm sure I know lots of you, and thank you very much for coming. And hasn't it been great? So, yeah, talking about loneliness. When we were originally asked to choose subjects for the Amsterdam Congress, which I unfortunately couldn't go to, it was ages ago. And I chose Shiatsu and Loneliness just because it came up in my mind. I don't know why. And then COVID-19 happened. And so loneliness became really an issue. And what I could see of Rita's presentation, she was producing some extraordinary figures about how lonely and isolated people felt. I certainly knew I had family and friends who were really feeling incredibly up against it, really lonely. And you all probably did too. And so these figures now have become even more relevant with the figures that Rita was producing about the suicides, the depressions, the anxiety since COVID-19. But anyway, the stuff that I've got is from studies that were done before, and the figures and the studies will be in a handout that you can have at the end. So all the references and things. So I want actually to make this partly a practical presentation, as I said in my blurb. So if you've got a partner who might be there in about half an hour, you could maybe let them know, give them a shout or send them a text or something. And so anyway, we'll begin to talk about how loneliness affects physical health. It'd be nice if I could actually see my slides, but you can read them anyway. I could bring it a bit closer, but it's fine. I don't want to emphasize all this. Basically what this slide says is that the sense of isolation and loneliness does affect our physical health, and it affects it to the same degree as obesity or cigarette smoking. Wow. And it seems to affect largely the cardiovascular system, heart attacks and stroke and high blood pressure. But what's also quite interesting is that lonely individuals are at higher risk of the onset of disability. And I find this quite interesting. It's as if our ki begins to decline. Our ki begins not to supply our body properly when we're lonely, as if we need the contact of other people in order to supply us with ki. So, and then we see this theme continue in the next slide. Oh, that didn't happen. How do I do my next slide?
Sorry, I just changed it for you. Do you want me to do the slides, Carol, or do you want to do them yourself?
I want to do them.
You do it. Okay.
I'm doing it.
Okay.
I'll keep that one. Okay. Loneliness and mental health. Sorry, folks. I will get a grip soon. Right. Cognitive decline. So this is also another factor. As our ki begins to decline, so our mental efficiency begins to decline. And so you get an increased risk of dementia. One study concludes a 64% increased chance of developing dementia. So that's
incredible.
Pretty strong, yeah. Lonely individuals are obviously more prone to depression and predictive of suicide in older age. And research showed us that actually the isolation produced by COVID-19 was indicative of more suicides in the younger age group, actually. Yeah. So. And that's quite relevant to what we're going to be talking about. Next slide. Are the health risks? So for people who don't live in the UK, your GP is your doctor. So you're more likely to visit your doctor, and you're more likely to use medication and more of it. And this is obviously not only that you want to go and see your doctor to have a little chat, because really you don't have much time to chat with your doctor. You want some attention to be paid to yourself. And you want medication because you don't feel good. And the higher incidence of falls and increased risk factors for long-term care. This is all about how ki begins to decline. And also accident and emergency services. People have more accidents and they hurt themselves more. It's almost as if because you feel unseen and meaningless, that you don't matter, that your body doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you fling it around. You actually injure yourself. So I find that quite interesting too. So moving on swiftly. Oh yes. So Cliff, you can do a poll for me. The BBC is coming out rather well in this Congress, I think, because they did they've done the Excellent Touch study that Rita was referring to. And they also did a study on loneliness. It was round about that time that the BBC and that the UK government, not the same as the BBC, actually appointed a minister for loneliness because it was being recognised that loneliness was such a big indicator of poor health. Okay.
So I've launched the poll, and which group do you think had a higher incidence of loneliness? This is a recent one. Is this during the pandemic then?
This was before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, okay. So
yes,
let's have a look.
I produced these slides before the pandemic. Yes, going on.
They reckon it's pretty much 50-50 of the respondents we're getting
slightly
into that
going
poll.
Towards the older. Well, certainly all the risk factors that we've been looking at up to now do seem to indicate we've got this image of the lonely old person living on their own.
Yes.
don't we?
Yeah.
But in fact, it is younger people. Younger people report that they feel lonelier than older people. And I think it was during this pandemic, it really has been the young people who have suffered. They've had a really rough time, because it's so important for young people to see their friends and to form communities. And I think we're coming close now to the idea of what actually loneliness is about, and how does loneliness arise. It's in adolescence that we begin to form an idea of the different selves that we're required to present to society. Obviously, we experience loneliness in childhood as well. I'm sure we've all got our experiences of being ostracized at school, but it's not such a complex thing. It tends to be, because you're better at spelling, or because you're smaller than somebody else, something pretty basic. But as we move into adolescence, then society begins to demand more of us. It begins to offer us more. We break away from our parents and our image of being in a family unit. We begin to branch out on our own. And at this point, society offers us stuff. It offers us, possibilities of education on our own, and possibilities of a job, or possibilities of a career, possibilities of a future life. We begin to see our adulthood coming up, and society is going to support us in that. But it asks a price. And it says you've got to be normal. And different areas of our life will ask us to be normal in different ways. And it's a very complicated time to negotiate, because you're going to be expected to be one kind of self with your mates. Perhaps you've got two different groups of friends. Maybe the other group of friends wants you to be a different self. And then if you get a job or you go into class, then you're expected to be another set of selves. And so this was why I asked you in my blurb to give a little bit of thought to the different kinds of selves that you present in different situations. And it's also interesting to think about your professional Shiatsu self, I think, because I've certainly got a professional Shiatsu self, which I'm trying hard to get rid of, because I think it's a bit of a barrier. It's a bit of a barrier to treating someone with beginner's mind if you're being very professional. And yes, I know what's going on with you, etc. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So what makes us really feel lonely? Let's look at the next slide. Is loneliness just about being alone? Well, I don't know about you, but a lot of my Shiatsu friends during the pandemic actually said they'd felt great, that it was like being in a retreat. So maybe Shiatsu people are a bit different in this way. It all depends on your inner resources. Because being alone is not the same as being lonely, as we know. Yeah. And the good old BBC, once again, produced this report on their survey. And they made this point. Loneliness is a feeling that you have nobody to talk to and that no one cares about you. You feel meaningless and you feel unloved. And this is something that is incredibly painful during adolescence and when you're a young person. As you get older, maybe you mature, you have more resources that you can use to deal with these feelings. You're more used to being on your own. But in youth, it's a terrible thing. And we all have these feelings throughout our lives, but we don't have them all the time. And yet some people can actually produce a kind of a story about themselves that they are a sad and lonely person. And they kind of reinforce it like that. Loneliness is really stemming from not being in relationship with yourself. if you're in relationship with yourself, if you've got a sense of your true self, and you're able to recognize that you bring out other selves in certain situations, and then you come back into your true self, then those other selves do what they're meant to do. They serve a purpose, and you're able to retain a sense of your true self. But if that process is interrupted or not supported in some way, you're not supported in developing a sense of your true self, then the whole process becomes one of being observed and being not adequate or wrong. You're not part of a tribe. You haven't found your right sense of being with people. You haven't actually got the right persona or the right self for the groups that you want to be with. And when you start to produce this image of yourself as being somehow wrong, that there's something not right with you, then it's going to be, there's not much point in doing internet dating or going out and joining different kinds of clubs. It's not going to work because it's all coming from inside. So, yes, healing is re-establishing connection and relationship with ourselves, as well as with others in the world. And that was something that Antigone was talking about in her presentation. My relationship with myself, my relationship with my client, relationship with the world. So relationship with ourselves is also a really important part of healing loneliness. So how can Shiatsu help? Obviously, the comfort of touch is the most obvious thing. And this was very much the theme of Rita's presentation. So, and I'm sure we have all had people come to us since then saying, oh, this is the first time I've been touched for 9 months, 10 months. I certainly had someone like that too. Also, getting us out of our heads. So this feeling of loneliness is often it's a story that we tell ourselves. And so many clients, they come to us and they've got their story, and we've got to actually perceive what's really going on with them underneath the story. But the story of being lonely is a very compelling one. Right, so the next one is not very clear. So Shiatsu releases blockages and holding. It's not about Shiatsu holding, it's about what the holding that we do. So when you're tensing yourself up and creating blockages in your system, in the flow of your ki, that's what Shiatsu is so fantastic at releasing and calming the mind. So helping you to relax so you can be more your true self. And then Shiatsu deals with ki, and ki comes from heaven and earth. And ki manifests in nature through the 5 phases. And we know how important the 5 phases are. We know how important nature is. There's so many studies talking about nature, how healing nature is, forest bathing, and bringing trees into cities, etc. We need nature because it actually reminds us of our true self, and which is actually ki. So some other things that I thought of after I produced this slide are, so Shiatsu helps because it's global. It deals with the whole person. You don't anymore feel disconnected. So you're aware of your global ki. And Masunaga gave us an amazing tool when he gave us the 2 hands as one idea. So when you create that 2 as one feeling, you are actually bringing people into a state of unification. So we're unified with our different selves. We come more into our true self through this feeling of globality. And I loved in Michel Odul's presentation, I loved what his Nagazono sensei said. If you work on the global, you will always reach the local. if you always work on the local, you will never reach the global. I thought, God, that should be a real motto. I should frame it and have it on the wall of my treatment room. And in the global state, we are one, we are unified. And something else that Michelle said was, it was a Chinese proverb: sickness is multiplicity, healing is unification. And I thought, well, that's exactly like that Lao Tzu quote that we always mention, that Pauline used to quote as well, didn't she, Cliff? The one creates the two create the three, and the three create the 10,000 things. And living in the world of the 10,000 things, you're living in a world where things are separate, and you are separate as well. And the different parts of you are separate. And Shiatsu with the two as one is going to help bring us out of that state of separateness and disconnectedness and bring us back into unification. Shiatsu puts us in touch with our key, and our key is connected to everything else through the universal key. And that's where our 5 phases come in. And I'd like to read to you, just because it's so very beautiful, these words that were written by a Swiss missionary to China. And he wrote this in 1867. And he's talking about the Chinese philosophy. And he says, they see a golden chain of spirited life running through every form of existence and binding together as in one living body everything that subsists in heaven above or earth below. I think that's so amazing.
That is wonderful.
So that's the nature of Ki. And when we work with Ki, then we're actually unifying. So we're going to come on to actually doing something now. So we're going to do a heaven and earth meditation and a 5-phase meditation. And it's very quick. You will be pleased to know it's something you can do we'll do it in probably about a minute, I'd say, maximum 2 minutes. So I'm not going to do it because if I move, my computer is very carefully placed on a very wobbly little table. So I'm sure Cliff can do it for you. All I'll be doing is sitting here, but occasionally I'll be moving my arms around, so you can watch me moving my arms around. But if you want to see feet, you'll have to watch Cliff.
Okay.
Okay, so you just...
Do you want to keep the slide on, or do you want to just go full screen with us two? Do you want to keep the slide on so people can read it?
Well, it's fine with both of us on, I think.
Yeah. And you're going to keep the slide on as well?
Yeah, I want yours on. Yeah, I want them.
Yeah.
And you can do it.
Yeah, I'm going to come back here.
Lovely, thank you. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me back? Okay, great.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So we're just going to stand for a moment. And, this is how we always begin our meditations. I'm sitting, but you're standing. And just pay attention to the pull of gravity. This is nearly always how we begin. So the pull of gravity is something that connects us all. So that line going down from your feet is going to go down towards the center of the earth. And so is everybody else's. Everything on the earth is connected right down to the center of the earth. So let your imagination travel down there. And there in the earth, it's fire. It's liquid, molten, incandescent, red hot, white hot. There's fire down there, there's heat. So just get a sense of that coming up through the earth, through your feet, up into your body. And at the same time, think of the lights from heaven. The lights in the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, shining down through you. And these two kinds of fire, the fire of earth and the fire of heaven, meeting in you. The starlight will cool it down if it's too hot. So the center of your fire element is your heart. So you can bring your hands to your heart and begin to move them outwards, taking the fire out, relationship with everything and everybody, and then bringing back in receiving. So receiving is a part of our work with Ki as well. So you can mimic the movement of the blood going out and coming back in. The blood goes out. It's a social signal when we blush. It shows our true self to others. The blood comes back in, replenishing, bringing nourishment, sending out, bringing in. And now we're going to do metal. So you can begin to breathe in time with the movement of your hands. Breathing out, breathing in. It doesn't matter how you do it. You can breathe out and in. You were doing it anyway. So just allow it to happen in time with the movement of your hands. So this is the atmosphere that we share. Breathing in molecules that have been breathed out by trees, molecules of oxygen. Sharing the atmosphere. And now you can change the movement of your hands because we're going to describe the cycle of water, and this is something that Nicola was doing in her presentation. The cycle of water coming down from heaven through us, over us, rain coming down into the earth, coming out as rivers which go to the sea, and then it evaporates, comes up to heaven, comes down. Water. Water that we take in, water that goes out, water that we drink, water that we pee out, water that we sweat out, everything going back to the cycle of water. And the water as it goes into the earth, just imagine now that you're a tree. So we can end with wood. Imagine your roots spreading out, connecting with other roots. Mycelia, the fungi that nourish the roots of the trees, connecting all of us. Enormous great networks connecting all the roots of everybody else. And your branches, if you like, you can begin to move. If you want to be a tree, you can begin to move. Feel your branches interlacing with other branches. Feeling ivy growing up you. Mushrooms and grass coming out of your roots. The wholeness of wood. Okay, so coming back down now. And have a little shake. And that's it, Cliff. You can come back now.
I'm definitely going to borrow that. That's a great sequence.
It's very quick. it's a good thing that it's very quick. I like quick. So hopefully we're feeling more global now. Global. I'd like really at some point to think about our true self again, which manifests in all these different ways. We can be water, we can be wood, we can be metal, we can be fire. Our true self is the source of all those things. And we do talk about the source in Shiatsu and in Chinese and Japanese medicine, because that whole energy medicine model is actually about how this world of material stuff that we live in, the world of the 10,000 things, how it manifests from essentially consciousness and energy. How does energy become form? And that is what we're working with. So we talk about source. But I'd also like to think of it a little bit to add the feeling dimension to it by calling it home. Because it's where we come from in time as well, in our physical body. Our physical body has a source and it has a home. And that feeling of home as being somewhere where we feel at home. I mean, we have an English proverb that says home is where the heart is. And it's a feeling of being able to be your true self, being able to relax, and feeling accepted and accepting. So that feeling of home. And it is our source as well. Yeah. How does the idea of home help us in our shiatsu? Diane Connolly wrote a book called All Sickness is Homesickness, which I think is a lovely way of addressing the spiritual aspect in our work, of how really we want to bring people home to themselves, and how that is what shiatsu does, really. So I would like to introduce here the idea of the central channel. So this slide is very small here. I don't know if you can see it bigger than I can, but anyway, do you think there's a possibility for it to zoom bigger? There probably isn't.
No, but we've got all the slides as a handout anyway, so we'll give that out at the end. So, yeah. So
what this is the upper two pictures are from Chinese woodcuts, and they are showing the central channel of the body from top to bottom, from the back and from the side. And this central channel is the basis, the origin of the extraordinary vessels that Suzanne was presenting about. The extraordinary vessels are what manifest to form our physical body in the womb. And it's a real thing, it's a physical thing. You know, it contains the spinal cord, it contains the great arteries, the aorta, and it contains the major glands. All of these lie on or very close to either side of the midline of the body. And the central channel is very important in the embryo. And these two bottom pictures are taken from a wonderful book called Life by Lennart Nielsen, Swedish, I think, photographer who has photographed with an electron microscope. Sometimes he's photographed hormones and tissues, and he's done a lot of work on embryos. And so in these two pictures of the embryo, once again from the back and from the side, you can see the central channel manifesting very clearly. And it's this longitudinal structure along which the embryo develops. So it's a real thing. And yeah, so I'd like to mention here this wonderful book, and that I know also has been an inspiration to Suzanne Yates. I know Dantian is very into embryology, and he's written about it in The Spark in the Machine. This is a different take on it, Muscles and Meridians by Philip Beach. Philip has a way with words. He really gives you a sense of what might happen to you as an embryo. And it's very exciting. It's a very exciting journey. So just two sentences from it I'm going to read to you now, which describe the moment at which the central channel is created. So it's just after the moment of conception.
Oh, we've got a freeze on Carola's video. That's because she's actually in West Wales and the internet is not always really super strong. But we'll just see, just hope that comes back in a second. We'll just see if we can get Carola maybe to log off and log back on again, or to reset her internet connection, which is exactly what she's just doing. We'll just see if we can get her back. She is actually in West Wales. She doesn't have the best internet connection in the world there. And actually was doing really, really well up until this point. So no doubt something's happened with the bandwidth. We're just going to take her out and bring her back in again. So just take a little break, and we'll line up. If you've got any questions that you want to ask Carol later, you can maybe put them in chat and we'll mark them up for you. And I noticed in the chat that a lot of you have been discussing the book, All Sickness is Homesickness. And there's many of you out there that are very familiar with Carola's work. So yeah, we'll just have a little break and then we'll get her back in a moment. Hopefully we'll reset her internet and just see if we can get that connection back to West Wales. Caroline.
West Wales, sorry.
Hey, there we go.
It happened a couple of times during the Congress with other presenters. What a moment for it to happen.
That's the thing about being in West
Wales.
Wales.
By an internal force.
That's the trouble with being in West Wales. It's a long way for the internet to get out there to that coastline.
It is, isn't it? We have a very cranky connection here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the central channel, back to the central channel. Yeah. The central channel is home. And this is something that I like to address in my shiatsu practice. And as well as addressing the as well as addressing the ordinary meridians, I like to use the ordinary meridians to work towards the center of the body, visualizing the central channel. Mm. So the relationship that I fantasize between the central channel and the meridians is that all the meridians feed back into it and come out of it. So via the connective tissue. Yeah. And it's like the segments of an orange. So when you look at an orange on the surface, it appears to be this ball with lines on the surface. But if you cut the orange through, you will see that all the lines on the surface are actually connected to the center. And that's the way I feel the meridians. So I will always be working through the surface into the center in order to connect with the central channel. The central channel is embodied on the surface of the body, particularly by the conception vessel and the governing vessel, which meet each other in the middle. And also the chongmai, which is partially part of the kidney. The kidney and bladder can also be used very effectively on the front and the back of the body at the same time to connect through. And what am I going to say next? Yeah. So we'll use our ordinary shiatsu. I'm not saying ordinary. We'll use our fantastic, fabulous, normal shiatsu to release tensions and blocks in the body. So here we've got two lonely guys. I can imagine they're both quite lonely for very different reasons. And these amazing drawings come from a book called Emotional Anatomy by Stanley Kellerman. Wow. And so they'll have very different diagnoses. This is the blockages and holding that I was talking about earlier on, and they are made visible in these drawings. So you can fantasize a diagnosis for the guy on the left. I think we've got to have spleen in there somewhere, don't you? Anyway, he's very depressed. He's very sad, and everything in him is going down and forward. Whereas the guy on the back is probably equally depressed, but is probably covering up pretty well, and he may even be a bit scary, I would think. So with him, it's all coming from that tight bum, isn't it, and going upwards and into his shoulders, and everything's rigid and military. So I can imagine that he's very lonely too. You might fantasize a diagnosis for him. So two lonely people for very different reasons. And so shiatsu is going to be great for them in very different ways. You can think about a treatment for each of them. But then what you can do, as well as releasing these blockages, the guy on the left, after your shiatsu, hopefully he won't be so needy, and he won't be the sort of person who go, oh no, here comes so-and-so to talk about how depressed he is, and they'll head off. hopefully he'll be more relaxed and he'll be smiling when he comes to people. And the guy on the right won't be so scary. He'll be a bit softer, and maybe he'll sort of sit down with you and have a cup of tea after his shiatsu. But there's an additional thing that you can do, which is actually approaching the central channel. You can do it as part of your shiatsu, or you can do it just as a little sequence after your shiatsu. I'm going to offer you both. So here we've got a little bit of our practical work. Yeah. So that's just saying what I just said. Okay. So we can approach the three Dantian. And the three Dantian are what Nicola also was talking about. You see how these themes come up again and again. It's really amazing. So the three Dantian are places in the body where we have access to something bigger than ourselves. And we also have access to the central channel. Once again, I do apologize for my slides. You can't really see the three Dantian on here. I do assure you they are there. There's three little blue circles on the three Dantian. So each of them connects us to an aspect of the world that is bigger than ourselves. So the lower Dantian connects us to our essence, which is the same essence that was handed down from our great grandparents. Same essence, sperm and egg, essence handed down through the generations to allow us to be here and finally residing in your lower Dantian. The middle Dantian is our key that connects us, that golden chain of spirited life. And the upper Dantian is our Shen, which is a part of the universal Shen, our consciousness, which is part of the universal consciousness. So we're going to do a little exercise now. I'll just show you the next slide, because if you're going to look at this as a recording, you will be able to read it there. It's just what I just said, how these connect us. So we're going to do a practical exercise now. And if you've got a receiver there, you can actually do it, your receiver, if they've been waiting patiently. And they can be lying any old how. But preferably on their back, maybe. And if you want to do it on your own, you can do it on your own. I will move this a little bit further away. Hopefully I won't lose internet connection again. So you won't be able to see my lower Dantian. You'll have to take it for granted. But Cliff might be able to do it and show you guys. So you can do it in a sitting position if you're on your own, if you've got your receiver lying down there. So we're just going to begin by contacting the lower Dantian. So you can do it with your palm or with your fingers. It doesn't really matter. What's important is that you get a sense of really making a connection deep inside, making that global connection. Now, it's hard to do with one hand, so we're going to use another hand on another of the Dantian. So you can choose. I'm going to use the middle Dantian. So holding both. So you want to get a sense of the linking that happens, the global expansion of the connection between these two. You can feel it on someone else, you can feel it on yourself. And then move one of your hands, it doesn't matter which, to the upper Dantian. So that's just between the eyebrows. Middle Dantian is between the breasts. I didn't say that. So what you want to do is find a connection that feels good and reinforce that. So I wasn't getting much of a connection between upper and lower. So I've gone back to middle, where I've got a fabulous connection with lower. But ultimately, we want to play around with these three until we get a good connection between all of them. So this is feeling a little bit better than it was. Middle Dantian seems to be the one that connects best with lower. So just play around with these on your receiver or on yourself. And hopefully you'll end up with a sense that all three are connected with each other. Right, that happened then, so that's good. So I got my connection between middle and upper going. So you could see it's something that you can do very quickly, linking up the three Dantian. Are you all connected up, Cliff?
Totally. It took a little bit of a while.
Are you global?
It took a little bit of a while to get this one to connect with the lower, to be honest. I had to do it in stages.
Yes, exactly. I think they help each other. They really do.
You know what? I felt a sensation down my back as well. It must have been the central channel or something.
Must have been your central channel opening up.
You can feel it sort of connecting up, not just on the front, it's more in the center. That's what I felt anyway.
Yes, I felt it more in the center. Yeah, great. Okay, so if you've been doing it on a receiver and they do shiatsu, then that's great. They can give you a repeat. They can do it on you in the tea break afterwards or the lunch break afterwards. But I do want to move on just to do a little bit more practical.
Okay.
So where do I find my video?
I can play that for you.
Can you play my video?
I can, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just introduce it. So there's another sequence that I developed with Annie Cryer when we were working together on our chakras workshop, which we presented for a while back in the day. And it's kind of about the chakras. Really, I see it as sewing the central channel together. So it's a sequence that you move your hands on your receiver from front to back, working down the central channel. It's very quick. You can do it at the end of a session if your receiver is on their side. So, okay, can we play the video then?
Just to minimize any echo, if we just turn our mics and our video off by using the buttons at the bottom there.
Okay. Turn video
and then
off.
that'll minimize any echo.
I've lost my mouse. Okay. So here's a little sequence for sewing together the chakras in the central channel. It's good to have the person lying on their side so that you can reach the front and the back of the central channel. But you will see as we go along that it's actually easier if you place them lying on their side like this. This stabilizes, and it also means that you can reach in to the lower chakras there. And also placing the arm gently on the side like that. Yeah. Oh, I've got one of Patricia's.
Oops, I've got the wrong slide.
Yes, I apologise about the camera work in that video. It was.
I thought it was great. I thought it was great the way it.
My son who did it, and he didn't really know what he was meant to be doing. So, so it wasn't very clear at the end. The end is holding the root chakra. But don't worry, because we have a series of slides, and we're going to do it together now. So you can either do it on your receiver, so get your receiver lying down on their side with the top leg straight and the bottom leg bent, like this picture, and the arm on the side. And we can do it on ourselves. So Cliff, if you could just go and sit a little bit further away.
Yeah. So that we
see you. Or you could do it, you can do it standing if you like.
Yeah, I'll do it standing because then you can see my whole body.
Standing. Okay, you're set up for standing, aren't you? So you won't be able to see me going down any further down than the heart chakra, but you'll be able to see Cliff. Okay. So you begin by holding the crown chakra. And I've got my hand in the slide hovering above, but you can actually touch. Doesn't matter, I had it hovering above because it felt like better that way. Sometimes it does. So just get a sense there. And then with your other hand, move to the third eye. Now, remember, what's important here is not the location, it's getting the feeling of a connection between your two hands through the body. Keep your hand on the third eye. Move your other hand to the base of the skull. I'm going to move the slide. Oh. Lost my mouse. Keep connecting with your chakras, Cliff. There we go.
All right.
Keep your hand on the third eye and move your other hand to the back of the neck, just under the skull. Find a good connection there. It doesn't matter exactly where it is, somewhere on the back of the neck. So that's the back of the throat chakra. Then bring your other hand that's on the third eye down to connect with the bottom of the throat chakra at the front. So this would be round about CV22, the notch between the collarbones, getting a connection there. Then you're going to move your hand that's at the back of the neck. You're going to move it down to the back of your heart chakra. And this is the bit that's really quite hard to do if you're doing it on your own. So doing it between your shoulder blades, getting a connection through, if you can, to your throat. And then moving the front hand down to connect with the middle Dantian, the front of the heart center. And then move the back hand down to round about the spleen area, the lower thoracic, still holding the heart center at the front. And move your front hand now down to somewhere. You're going to find your solar plexus. Find a connection in somewhere between the ribs and the navel. Find your good connection there. And then move your back hand down towards the sacrum, holding the sacrum. And your front hand can move down to hold the hara. So you want to get that connection between the sacrum and the hara. And now, unless you know your receiver very well indeed, you won't be holding the root chakra. But you can do it on yourself. Either hover your hand over the root chakra Or if you're doing it on yourself, you can just connect with it etherically, and your front hand is still connecting with the hara. So making that connection between hara and root. And then you can bring your front hand up once again to connect with the crown. So you make the connection between the two. So joining up the central channel. So that's the sequence.
Wow, great.
It's very quick to do. Yes, sorry, Cliff. I could see that there was a moment there. It is quite difficult doing this, isn't it?
It is quite hard, but I did manage it.
Chakra.
Yeah, it's a very good, very interesting idea, and I think I can definitely integrate that in, because just definitely work on the side position. I do quite some things that are quite close to that, and it'd be easy to modify it so that I felt like I had a shower down my central channel. The way it went, it was really quite a lovely feeling.
You know, you're so good when you do these things. You get the most amazing results.
It's all the practice.
You're so finely tuned. You're finely tuned.
I'm not the only one.
Right.
I look at the chat. Everyone's the same. Everyone who's done it feels the same.
So, are there any questions? Because we've got just
quite a few questions. Yeah, we've only got a few minutes left, but let's have a look and see what we've got. Wow, we've got quite a few. Yeah. Okay, so Pat says, quite a long question. Isn't it also true that we can over-identify with a particular sense of self? We often refer back to a self that we used to be, rather than giving ourselves permission to change. This, I find, is usually a self that we were in our early adulthood. I like to think that Shiatsu connects us with the ability to change. Key is change, movement, flow, stagnation is sickness. Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, that's hardly a question, but it's great. It's a fabulous contribution.
I think it's absolutely right. This is Mark. I'm not quite sure the English is a little bit difficult to understand, but it was from a lot of time earlier on. An Indian model is when we push ourselves out of the phenomenal into infinity, I think that might mean, but I'm not sure. It's difficult to understand that exactly, Mark. I'm not sure.
What was the Homeric model of the person?
I'm not sure. Maybe that's the idea of the different selves. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Here's a question from Alexandra. Can you tell us where to find those old Chinese woodcut images? Where did you find them?
A very useful resource is Welcome Images. That's Welcome with 2 L's. The Welcome Institute has a library of these things, and you can access it online. But you may have to join the Welcome Institute in order to do that. I did that when I was writing Shiatsu Theory and Practice.
Okay, here's Catherine says, loneliness is seeing the two sides. Thinking back to those two drawings, the
two depressed men.
Yeah, are there two ways of dealing with it? Or letting drop everything, or covering up, let's say, with more upright action? Have I understood this properly? I think it's just asking whether there's different ways of treating those different things.
Yeah, it's different ways of feeling it, Catherine, different ways. They felt their loneliness in very different ways, but certainly the uptight man on the right was covering up much more. Yeah. And some people will express their loneliness by being needy, and some people will cover it up by don't dare come and talk to me and find out how vulnerable I am. We have so many different ways of protecting ourselves.
Here's Susan's got an interesting idea. What effect do you think it would be if we did that exercise the other way round, started with the root chakra and went up? Release the Kundalini, you almost certainly become spiritually enlightened. You get to the top.
It's a great idea. I mean, there's no restrictions on the way that you do it, so just try it.
That would be definitely worth experimenting
with. The only thing is, I would try it first on somebody that you do know really, really well and who doesn't mind you holding their bum. Because it's actually a lot easier to connect physically with the root chakra, which is why doing it that way round, you kind of like brought the key of heaven all the way down, and you can feel etherically better at the bottom, I would say.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Let's see. Maureen says, what is different front and back? The same height. Oh, I see. Rather than jumping towards the front and the back, what about going down just like this? You know, rather than going backwards and forwards. That's what she's asking.
I first discovered the central channel in my practice by working kidney and bladder together at the same time, because I got the feeling that I was able to just go through. And that is still my preferred way of working, is probably because I just do it much more on a sort of denser vibration. I think you have to be quite highly attuned if you're going to, you see, because the chakras give off as well. So if you're working on a chakra at the front, it's going to be like going boom, 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 and pushing outwards. That's my feeling. Whereas what I really want to do is I'm not really so much, I want to go down deep into the center of the person. But there's absolutely no reason why you can't do it like that. I think maybe you need to relax deeply and drop down through.
Emma asks, how did you develop that last sequence? And would you recommend it for any particular thing? You know, when would you recommend its usage?
I just think it's a great thing to do at the end of a treatment. If you feel that there's something that's needed to change, needed to come out, something deep inside the person that needed to come out, and you feel like you didn't quite get there with your Masanaga Shiatsu, I mean, I would probably do it then.
Yeah, just to anchor it down. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's the end of our hour together, Carola. It's been such a pleasure, as always. Thank you for all the practical work. Came at a really good time.
Thank you.
Yes, it's so lovely. I'm sure everyone in the chat will look at the reaction in the chat.
And thank you again for putting this together.
Not at all. It's been my absolute pleasure. And
I will log off now.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much to Carola.